Hello, today I want to show you how I made this fun custom charcuterie board using EPOXACAST 690 clear epoxy resin. This serving board was a big hit at my family dinner, with all my family members asking for one. I purchased this cutting board online and it was pretty inexpensive. Using hot melt glue, I'm going to adhere the original cutting board to a working surface. This aluminum flashing is a great material to build a mold box of an irregular shaped model. It can be purchased from most home improvement stores. I'm putting some small dots of hot melt glue to hold the aluminum around my model. Now I'm using hot melt glue to seal the seam to prevent anything from leaking out. The cutting board already came sealed, so I do not have to seal it for the mold making process. Later in the project, when I cut the cutting board, I will expose the porous wood and then we will have to seal it. To make the mold, we are going to be using Mold Star 30, which is a platinum silicone rubber. It is easy to use and it has a 1:1 mix ratio. It also does not require a vacuum chamber. I'm going to mark my dispensing cups about 3/4 of the way up. It's important to always pre-mix your material before using it. Once that is done, I dispense my material to the lines that I marked and continue to combine the parts A and B in a new mixing container. I'm going to thoroughly mix parts A and B together, making sure to scrape the sides and bottom of the container as I mix. The contrasting pre-colored parts A and B are nice as they act as a mixing indicator. Once the color is uniform, I begin to pour it into the mold box at the lowest point. I continue to pour the liquid silicone at that point and allow the silicone to flow over the model until it finds its own level. There should be about 1/2 inch of material above the model. After the silicone is poured, I let the Mold Star 30 cure for 6 hours at room temperature before moving on to the next step. After the silicone is cured, I use isopropyl alcohol to soften the hot melt glue so the mold box can be easily removed. Now the silicone mold is easily removed from the cutting board. The Mold Star 30 has captured all the detail from the original model. Next, I'm trimming the silicone flashing off around the edges of the mold. Time to cut the original model to create our design. I'm going to draw 2 cut lines on the model. With these 2 cut lines, I'm looking for an organic feel. Using a bandsaw, I'm going to make the 2 cuts following my pre-marked lines. Next, I take those cut pieces and place them into a vise. I'm drilling 4 small holes into the side of the cutting board, which will help create a mechanical bond of the epoxy and wood. Process is done for the small handle piece as well. Now I'm going to place both cut pieces of wood back into the mold. The first step is to seal the edge of the wood to help prevent any air bubbles. To seal the wood, I'm using EPOXACAST 690. This is a clear liquid epoxy resin. The EPOXACAST 690 has a mix ratio of 100 parts A to 30 parts B by weight. I don't need a lot, so I'm going to dispense 50 grams of part A with 15 grams of part B. I'm then going to combine them and mix them thoroughly. While mixing, I make sure to scrape the sides and the bottom of the container. Then I'm going to take the material and pour it into another mixing container and mix it again. This is a double mix and pour, and it will help me to ensure that the liquid epoxy is thoroughly mixed. Using a disposable brush, I'm applying liquid epoxy to the side of the wood cutting board. This will seal the porous wood to prevent air from escaping into the liquid epoxy when I pour the center area. This will be left for 12 hours at room temperature to partially cure. Next, I am dispensing more epoxy and thoroughly mixing it together. And then I'm going to pour a thin base layer into the mold for the elements to sit on. After the first layer is poured, I'm going to use a propane torch to eliminate any bubbles that are in the liquid epoxy. After that is done, I'm going to let the epoxy partially cure for 12 hours at room temperature before proceeding to the next step. It is important to have a partial cure with this layer and that the material stays tacky and not cured. I purchased some dried citrus slices online to encapsulate in the liquid epoxy resin. With a rough design in mind, I'm going to place the dried fruit into the partially cured epoxy. You can lay these out to the side beforehand to see how it looks, or just have fun and place them at random. Be careful here that you do not touch the epoxy and make any marks with your gloves. Allow the fruit to sit on top of the epoxy resin. Do not push the fruit down into the epoxy too hard. This could trap air pockets between the fruit and the first layer of epoxy. I will also add cinnamon sticks, coffee beans, and star anise as decorative elements around the fruit. Once I have a design that I like, I will let the EPOXACAST 690 cure for 24 hours before doing anything else. Now it is time for the final layer. I'm going to dispense and mix more epoxy resin. I pour it into the mold over top of the dried elements. Because the first layer is now cured, the elements are locked into place and they will not move or float when I pour in this final layer. Again, using the propane torch, I will dissipate any bubbles that are in the epoxy from mixing. Once that is done, the epoxy is allowed to cure for 24 hours. Now it's time to demold. I can easily remove the casting from the mold. I'm really happy about how it turned out, and now we can sand and polish this piece and get it ready to be used. Using an orbital sander and starting with 80 grit sandpaper, I'm sanding to the top and bottom of the piece, sanding the epoxy and wood for a smooth, even surface. I'm going to use the same process and step up in the grit of the sandpaper. I'm using 120, 180, 240, 320, 400, 600, and 1000 grit sandpapers. I will repeat the same process to sand the bottom side. Next is the wet sanding. Using a small amount of water, I'm using a 1200 grit paper and wet sanding the top and bottom of the piece. Then stepping up in grit, I will also use 1500, 2000, 3000, and 4000 grit sandpapers to wet sand the top and bottom of the piece. This will start to bring the clarity back to the epoxy. After the sanding is complete, I will use some polishing compound, starting with a medium cut pad and then an ultra fine pad to polish both sides of the epoxy to an ultra high gloss finish. The clarity has been restored and this piece looks great. I'm happy how the epoxy polished. Now time for the very last step, which is applying a food safe finishing oil to the front and back of the piece to seal it and protect the wood. Because I had a mold of the cutting board, I was able to make all these other designs. Here is the finished piece on display, serving up some delicious spreads of snacks for the family. All said and done, this was a very easy and fun project to do. I hope you enjoyed the process, and remember to like, subscribe, and comment if you have any ideas for projects you would like to see next. I'll see you next time!